Love bombing. Let's talk a little bit about love bombing. Love bombing is often popularized as novelty, excitement, romance, fairy tale, fun dinners, elaborate dates, gifts, trips, cute little notes. Sometimes it's that, yeah. But more often, love bombing, which we more technically call the idealization and seduction phase, it's a period of time when whatever it is that this love bomber person is doing is drawing you closer. Your defenses are dropping, and it's quite tactical. It can be lots of things. Love bombing isn't just the gifts and the flowers. It could be fostering a financial dependency. It could be learning about your vulnerabilities and initially soothing you through them, but ultimately weaponizing them against you. It could be telling you exactly what you want to hear because they figured out exactly what you want to hear. It could be to learning about what other partners in your past or family members may have criticized you for or done to you, and then told you that none of those terrible things they said are true, and they're such jerks for doing that. But then down the line they say, I see why your family thought you were a loser. You get the picture. Love bombing is more than just a grandiose display. It's also a period of time when the emotionally abusive person learns about you and they study you and you confide in them and you trust them. Love bombing is about getting a person into a position where they can be manipulated and are less likely to leave. But it comes in this really charming, charismatic, and everything we wanted kind of package. But there's one form of love bombing we don't talk about enough. And I got to tell you, it might be one of the most sticky forms of love bombing. And that is the love bomb trauma dump. In the love bomb trauma dump, the love bomber does just that. They just share their trauma. One painful, sad, hurtful story after the other. And in the name of compassion, we're going to assume that what this person is sharing is true, that they did go through some difficult things. And if a person lies about what has happened to them or lies about trauma that to draw you close, that's definitely more. Now we're getting in the lane of malignant narcissism or even psychopathy. This sense of lying and manipulating and exploitation. But let's just assume, for this video, I'm assuming that what this person is sharing with you, much of it is true, or at least it's true adjacent. Now, when you meet someone new, could be a partner, could be a friend, frankly, and they share with you really, really difficult, painful things, it's tricky. Because especially if you're empathic, compassionate, agreeable, just kind, you're going to hear those things. And if you are at all attracted to them or interested in them or something you find compelling about this person, not only are you going to feel that empathy and communicate that empathy, you might even feel as though you have to protect this person and make sure you don't hurt them more than they've already been hurt. They may share all kinds of things with you, stories of an unfaithful ex-wife or an extortionate ex-partner or a physically abusive parent or psychologically manipulative family members, or that they were bullied from peers or colleagues. You may even think that this level of deep sharing is true intimacy, someone who's sharing this kind of stuff with you. You may compare this to past relationships or friendships where it took the person you are meeting a minute to warm up and even share anything about themselves. So this deep sharing of such vulnerable things must be real and evolved and close and intimate. All of those assumptions are understandable. And as I say this, I do want to put this in as a disclaimer. Not all people, in fact, the vast majority of people who share openly about painful or traumatic experiences in a relationship or even early in a relationship are love bombing or antagonistic. No way. Again, most people who do that are not. Some people are openly sharing their story. They aren't trying to love bomb. They're just simply sharing and being vulnerable. I'm specifically talking about a very narrow band. That's not what I'm talking about here. I am not talking about people who share their difficult backstory. And it's not a tactic, okay? When we're talking about the love bomb trauma dump, it's a tactic. The love bomb trauma dump is often observed more in people who ultimately, typically are people with more of the vulnerable narcissistic patterns, or over time, those vulnerable narcissistic patterns will emerge. Irritability, competitiveness, being aggrieved and angry and resentful and entitled in a victimized way, a sullenness, a passive-aggressive sort of woe is me, no one has ever been kind to me. But once those patterns start emerging, after the love bomb trauma dump, you start connecting the dots, as any kind, compassionate person would, and say, oh, they've been through so much. So maybe it makes sense that they're having this anger, resentment, passive-aggressive, withholding. And you know what? You aren't wrong. You aren't wrong. The challenge becomes, how long can you live like this? These things, your empathy, your compassion, these are good things about you. You may, like I said, you may be someone who has deep, deep wells of empathy and someone who wants to protect and care for people, maybe even rescue them. If you have those qualities, these things can make the love bomb trauma dump very tricky and treacherous and very difficult to navigate. Because it feels very cold and inauthentic, frankly, to yourself to shut someone down who's sharing difficult stories about their past. And you may even feel like, wow, this is a lot to take in. But again, that compassionate part of you is saying, I don't want to hold this against this person. They're sharing with me. They trust me. And you feel compelled to keep them safe. All great. In classical grandiose love bombing, people, especially once the devaluing starts, you often find yourself wanting to go back to how it was in the beginning. You're like, I want to go back to the intensity when they were obsessed with me, the fun, the romance, the sexiness, the fairy taleness of it. You want to go back. The devalue phase means you start going into the trauma-bonded rabbit hole of, what am I doing wrong? Because it's not like that anymore. It must be me. What can I do differently? I want to go back to the way things once were. In that kind of grandiose, shiny love bombing, the pain and the grief, the confusion, all come from wanting to go back to the way it once was. You almost feel like a child, like, I want to go back to that day. And so I'm going back. In the love bomb trauma dump version, it's different. It may never have been sort of fun and exciting, but you may have felt a connection to someone who has been through some difficult things, especially if you also have been through difficult things, and especially if they're similar difficult things. You may have found that this person did respond well to you. They welcomed your care, your solicitude, your help. They may have even said to you, it's so nice to be with someone who's so understanding. And that can feel like a perfect mirror. Let me tell you this, no picnic on the beach or 5-star restaurant feels as good as somebody seeing your compassion. So when the relationship starts to decline into gaslighting and that angry, resentful, aggrieved entitlement, how come I have to work so hard at my job? How come everybody gets stuff handed to them? And then the manipulation of like, oh, I get it. Now you're going to leave me like everyone leaves me. I should have known that you're going to be no different. I can see you're not happy. So of course you're going to leave me. And then the dismissiveness, hearing things like, ugh, your job isn't that big a deal. Like, you act like you're so busy. If I grew up, without all these terrible things that I went through, I could probably have a bigger job than you right now. If you've been through this, you get it. It's heavy. And the stuff you have available to you to make excuses for their behavior from, all that stuff they shared with you, it's much deeper and it's much easier to convince yourself and say, I understand why they're like this. And you may even shame yourself and think, ugh, I'm so terrible for being so aggravated with them or thinking that they're narcissistic. Like, they've been through a lot. Unlike with the grandiose love bomb scenarios, you aren't trying to get back to something. Instead, you're trying to be patient with someone who really seems to need your patience. But no matter how patient you are, it never seems to get better. It can be exhausting, isolating, demoralizing, like living in a house where all the windows are covered and no light ever comes in. Just as you want to say something, you may catch yourself and say, "It's not fair for me to do this. It's not fair for me to expect this. They had a lot happen to them. They've had a tough life. People aren't nice to them." But the fact is, even if you did say something, it wouldn't make a difference. So over time, you do start to feel fully silenced, stuck in a very difficult situation, and feeling potentially quite guilty that you want to get out, and almost feeling like you really have no right to get out, because then you're going to be leaving this person who thought you were going to leave them already. And if you were going to suggest, you say to them, "Hey, you need to get some help, maybe talk to someone," good luck with that. If you do that, you're going to get rage, silent treatment, withdrawing, more victimhood, saying that you're just one more person who tries to call them crazy instead of trying to understand them. So now you are caught in a perpetual cycle that feels impossible to get out of. In these kinds of stories, you may have less of the story that like for example, many people in narcissistic relationships are stuck in the situation where everyone thinks the narcissistic person is great or well put together or a fun time. In these situations, it's more likely that you can get quite isolated. The love bomb trauma dumper may isolate you by putting down other people in your life, accusing you of being nicer to other people than to them. They say things from you that are nice to hear sometimes, like, "I just want all of you. Why do you have to spend time with other people?" It feels nice in the beginning, but it gets old when you just want to go out and have a wider life in the world. They question, why do you need other people? How come they're not enough? Why can't it just be enough with them? And it always comes back to the slam dunk of manipulations. See, you're just one more person who's going to leave me. You're just one more person who's going to be unkind to me. You're one more person who's not going to be there for me. You can't win at this. And remember that folks with this vulnerable style are often do find it harder to be with other people. Now, discernment is often the only path forward. The sharing of the painful experiences by this person isn't the issue. That can happen with anyone you meet who's gone through tough stuff. And sometimes in healthy cases, it can over time create a deep connection. Discernment is about keeping our eyes open to dynamics such as reciprocity, that back and forth, that mutuality, whether they are actually listening to you. And it's tricky because as part of the love bomb trauma dump, they may listen to you early on, but then that changes. It's also listening for patterns such as entitlement and victimhood. Why should I have to work? Everyone has it easier than me. Why isn't the world fair to me? It's this sense of how come life isn't fair just to me? It's about paying attention to being shut down and hearing stuff like, "Ugh, your pain is nothing compared to mine. Your life hasn't been as hard as mine." And many people may say, "Well, you know what? Actually, I think that their pattern is just this is just post-trauma. It's post-traumatic reactions." And yeah, some of it, even a lot of it is. And if it was just that, post-traumatic reaction without the narcissism present, there actually may be more openness to therapy, or at the very least, to accountability. The difference is if narcissism's present, they're going to blame you, they're going to blame the world, there's going to be little accountability and little capacity for repair. And the love bomb trauma dumper is always going to play the winning card in their hand. I've suffered, so you have to be nice to me, and nothing is my fault. And then there's the toughest part of all. Yes, this love bomb trauma dumper has likely gone through some really difficult and terrible things. And yes, this person is also emotionally manipulative. And yes, you are walking on eggshells and afraid to do or say anything for fear of setting them off or setting off their suspiciousness or their rejection sensitivity. And yes, this person's behavior may in part definitely be related to what they have been through. And yes, their behavior probably won't change. And you may look back and wonder, how the hell didn't I see this coming? I'll tell you how the hell you didn't see this coming. Because the very best parts of yourself, the kind, compassionate, empathic parts, meant that you did something very human. You were present and open to someone who was sharing their pain with you. And if it won't change, the ongoing narcissistic behavior, abusive behavior, the question you have to grapple with is, what do I want to do? What can I do? Changing them is off the table. So what do you do? Remember that a lot of us have been dealt bum hands, and we play them the best we can. It's crucial that you stop making excuses for them, especially for the behavior that hurts you and other people. It's crucial that you build out other supports, even if you have to resist their manipulations and their attempts to isolate you. It's crucial that you disengage and don't participate in their victimized rants. It's absolutely crucial that you seek out therapy with someone who gets this, because you're going to need it. It's crucial that you find activities in your life that are meaningful to you and do them separate from them. And it's crucial that you expect little support or recognition within the relationship. And if you do leave, you have to be prepared for threats and the ongoing insistence that you talk to them, and numerous and often scary attempts to pull you back in, like I said, in ways that can feel unsettling. You may feel tremendous pity, lots of guilt, and tons of shame. You may feel as though you're thinking about walking away or actually walking away from someone who needs you, and wondering, what does that make me if I'm walking away from someone who's gone through a tough time? Frankly, I think the love bomb trauma dump might be the hardest form of love bomb to spy, because it's hard to turn off that part of you that wants to be a safe person to someone who's sharing. A lot of people who share like this aren't love bombing you. It's hard to see both things at the same time. They went through something difficult, but they also aren't safe. Slowing down can help a lot when you first meet someone. Paying attention to why that fixing, helping, rescuing part of yourself exists. Being curious about it, but not letting it run the show. Sometimes it takes getting burned a few times, and then you may find that you do have the ability to turn away from the love bomb trauma dump from any new person you meet, but it's not easy to do. Sadly, sometimes the kindest parts of yourself are what make these types of situations so difficult. And more than any other, are the ones that are the most difficult, if you will, to fix. The self-blame, plus the exhaustion, plus the disappointment, plus the guilt, plus the grief, plus the pity, is a toxic combination that eats you from the inside out. So pay attention. And if somebody had terrible things happen to them, you can hold compassion for them. But you also don't have to excuse abusive behavior in a relationship. And remember that you aren't responsible for the terrible things that happen to them. It gets very challenging, and I'm saying that there are no easy answers here. But to be aware that if you look back and say, this wasn't about dancing under the stars, this wasn't about going out, this wasn't about getting all kinds of romantic texts, but this was me meeting someone who felt like they needed me, and then it turned, this can actually be a much harder situation to spy. I hope this was helpful, and thanks again.